and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to Business Point here on Global Television, your hub for topical discussions around business, Nigeria's economy, and government policies. I am Queen Agaba, and today we look at the banking sector. The stability of the banking sector has been crucial for, the overall health of Nigeria's economy. The Central Bank of Nigeria, which plays a vital role in maintaining financial stability through various reforms and initiatives, have recently reassured the public of stability in the banking sector, highlighting its ongoing efforts to strengthen the industry. This development raises important questions about the effectiveness of the CBN's reforms and initiatives so far in ensuring banking sector stability. Joining me on the program to discuss and assess the CBN's reforms and initiatives so far is Dr. Wisdom Enang, who is a senior energy analyst and a business consultant. He will join me after the break to look at these concerns. Please stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. If you've just joined us, this is Business Point on Global Television, your hub for topical discussions around business, tech, innovation, and government policies. And I highlighted that the Central Bank of Nigeria has recently assured the public of the stability and safety of the Nigerian banking sector. This statement was made on May 19th. The Acting Director of Corporate Communications at the CBN, in response to reports suggesting instability within a regulated financial institution. Joining me on the program is Dr. Wisdom Enang, a business and energy analyst, to look at ongoing efforts to strengthen the industry. And also, the development by the CBN also raises important questions about the effectiveness of the CBN's reforms and initiatives in ensuring banking sector stability. Many thanks for joining me on the program, Dr. Wisdom.
morning. Hello, good morning.
Morning,
Thank you
thank
very
you, Dr.
much.
Wisdom.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Good morning. Many thanks for joining me on the
Right.
program.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Okay, in recent years, the Central Bank of Nigeria has implemented various reforms, including introduction of international financial reporting standards, and also the strengthening of guidelines, prudential guidelines, which is aimed at enhancing the banking sector. But despite these efforts, concerns have been concerns, a lot of concerns around asset quality, credit risks that has been persistent. What are your thoughts on the effectiveness of these reforms so far in promoting stability in the banking sector?
Yeah, absolutely. The reforms are very laudable. In fact, I think it has strengthened the global competitiveness of each of our banks. The issue is there's the reform on one side and there's the implementation of the reforms on the other side. Because some of the infractions that we do have from the banking sector, the reforms have been designed to checkmate that, to curb that, to make sure that those infractions are perhaps something that is reduced to as low as reasonably probable. But that being said, I think the discipline within which we implement some of these reforms are essentially something that we need to look at more critically. There needs to be a lot more sort of hard actions on the banks who are, I mean, infringing on some of those regulations from the CBN. So I think it is very important for the CBN to walk the talk of making sure that any bank that is found wanting is reprimanded, and the banks that are doing well are being, praised for, leading the charge in implementing the CBN's initiative or regulation.
Okay, but do you believe that the CBN's efforts so far, in addressing issues that have been raised, issues about non-performing loans, and also their reassurance? Recently, the CBN reassured of, stability in the banking sector. But do you think that that's enough? The efforts have been sufficient enough to address these challenges so far? And what more, do you think can be done?
I mean, essentially, I mean, the CBN is coming in from the angle of just trying to be very protectionist of consumers, or making sure that, again, there's a lot of safety net around what the banks are doing to ensure that, for example, the capital base and their liquidity ratios and all of that are pretty much in a very safe, safe location, or safe position rather. But what more can we do? I think it's just looking at the practices of the banks, because it's one thing to put those, some sort of, I like to say, regulations or the laws or the rules up. It's another thing to see, are they really practicing? How do we measure their, compliance and reporting of the compliance? How do we update customers on the safety position of some of the banks? I mean, if banks, for example, are about to go into some sort of financial distress, is there a way the customers should be made aware that, okay, this bank are becoming weak in their position? It's not just to work between the banks and the CBN. Are there some sort of discourse around, yes, preventing any sort of exposure, but more so intimating the customers about exposures that could potentially affect their investments or their banking decisions?
Okay. But how do you think that Nigerian banks in particular can improve risk management, and also how can they mitigate potential threats to stability? Because we've had recent reports that banks have seen an increase in non-performing loans, and also it has highlighted the need for improved risk management practices. So how do you think that banks can mitigate these threats?
All right. I mean, what you've said is a very important thing, and I'm going to take us back to the financial crash of 2008. And what was one of the top chief culprits of the financial crash? It was the fact that that's a global financial crash. It was the fact that bankers were rewarded for giving out loans ab initio, so they were, taking their bonuses up front, and there was no recourse to whether those loans were performing or not. So just giving out loans or would be able to allow you get some sort of bonuses, but whether those loans were performing or not was a different case. So the financial bubble was created, which ultimately became broke into a burst, and ultimately there was a financial collapse. Now, here's where we can learn lessons from there. If the banks want to give out loans, they need to make sure that there is some sort of connection to the product in terms of getting your returns on investment. That's really critical, because a lot of people are fond of getting licenses. For example, in the oil and gas sector, they get licenses. They use those licenses as a form of sort of securitization to get loans. And when they get those loans, they have no intentions of developing these assets. Some of them don't even understand the asset, or whether the asset is going to produce sort of money or profitability in the way they have thought about the execution of that asset. And then they go ahead to get loans and feed off these loans, which is the actual position that AMCON has found itself, where a lot of loans were taken for genuine reasons, but the follow-up was not done. So what are the thoughts that I have as a non-banking professional? I think we should look at the business case of some of the loans that are being taken very well. I think we should also look at sort of following up on those guys that are taking loans. Don't just wait until the time where you're supposed to recover your loans and then you find that the loans are gone. I think the other thing that banks need to do is to take a phasal approach. When you're taking a phasal approach, it means if you had maybe ₦1 million to give somebody for a business, you could break down and de-risk the entire process by saying, look, these are the milestones. We're going to break it down to 5 milestones. And the milestones, you getting the next milestone is contingent on you meeting the requirement for the preceding milestone. And ultimately, when you meet that requirement, you can then get the second milestone and the third milestone before. So that way you're following up, and you can almost ensure that when things are getting south, you can catch it up front, and that limits your exposure. So sometimes risk management is not about risk elimination. It is about being able to manage the exposure or the consequences of that exposure to as low as reasonably probable. So I think the bankers should not just give all upfront. They must manage the risk to make sure that there is some sort of protection all the way for themselves and even for the businesses. Some of those businesses don't even understand end-to-end what their risk envelope looks like. And so the bankers should step in, get a team in place that would help put a milestone, sort of disbursement pattern in place to help the businesses and also limit their own exposures.
Thank you, Dr. Wisdom. We're still talking about risk. The CBN has also been working to strengthen regulatory framework, which includes the introduction of new guidelines on cybersecurity risks and management. But on cybersecurity, are there areas where you think the CBN regulatory framework could be improved to better support the stability we're talking about in the banking sector?
Yeah, I mean, cybersecurity. We've got a lot of data that I think we could mine to use and better understand our consumers or better profile them. For example, we've got the NIN, we've got the BVN, we've got all sorts of numbers, even the voters card, we've even got the tax TIN, tax identification number. But I think all of these numbers should help us to see, for example, if there are empowerment programs from the federal government, who exactly is getting what. Those numbers, a combination of those numbers, should be able to check that people are not getting or abusing the system. You should be able to profile, there's a signature. A lot of people that are used to abusing systems, whether it be getting loans and not repaying, whether it be abusing the system by way of fraudulent, intent. I think it is important for us to understand that, yes, there's a signature to this. We can get to understand who is doing what. So I think the CBN, in addition to what they're already doing, should be thinking about building a sort of an intelligent signature around the banking sector to know that, okay, look, this kind of people, there is a higher risk. If you're going to get involved with this sort of businesses or with this XYZ set of people, there's a much higher risk. The credit rating should tell us that, so that the banking sector can know, okay, when dealing with these people, we should attach a much higher, a much higher requirement to make sure that we reduce our risk exposure.
Okay, now let's talk digital banking. We've seen a rise in digital banking has been rapid, actually, and then we've also reported significant increase. Still digital banking, mobile banking, and mobile banking transactions. But do you think that this rise, this growth that we've seen in digital banking has been able to help stabilize the banking sector? Or how do you...
Yeah, I think...
Okay, please go ahead.
I think digital banking has really helped to, sort of help the banking sector. I see that. I mean, you go to every place now. I mean, the fintechs are taking the lead on that. A lot of activities are going on right now, but it comes with an exposure, right? It comes with the exposure of, okay, you have the digital banks, but at the same time, there is some cyber exposure associated with it. There are people that are customers that do not really understand how well to protect themselves of these exposures. There are also people that do not understand the extent to which their exposures could be. Some people say, well, my cards, I've never given anyone my PIN, I've had my card, and then the money is gone. And people forget that there are websites where you could literally just put the card and authorize it, and then it goes through. So I think the digital banking has really helped for convenience. A lot of things are done right now. I can for example, I can note some credit on my phone just at the comfort of my home. I do not have to go out there and look for where to get it. I can do a lot of things even after non-banking hours. I can pre-program a lot of things to happen, but that's not to say that it doesn't come with exposure. And even with increased technology, a lot of more exposures are coming around. I think what the banks have to do is to make sure that two things: they increase the reliability of the digital banking and make sure that it's you do not want to be on a weekend and you transfer your last amount of money to somebody that you wanted to do something very important, and then you're debited, and then the money is not transferred, and you have to wait for a couple of days to be able to get that reversed. So the reliability needs to be increased, but also the security needs to be worked on, because there are cases where people say genuinely that the money was lifted off their account, they have no clue what happened there, and the banks haven't even been able to answer. But the other thing is there needs to be some training programs. I mean, let me give you for context. In the UK, for example, there are times where you get the banks send you some video tutorials on your app. You open your apps and video tutorials is telling you about the fraud, be aware of the fraud that is going on and the different patterns, and you can watch those little clips, 5 minute clips, and it educates you. So anyone that has an app, there should be a pop-up video designed to come up and tell those guys, intimate those guys the latest scams, how the patterns of those scams are, and what to do and what to be aware of. I think this is what would help. There should also be ongoing trainings at the different various banks to help some of those vulnerable population, the elderly, and some of those people that really do not use mobile banking, or they use it once in a while, but they do have it, to let them know that even using an updated app could actually be an exposure, because obviously the updates do carry some security updates as well. So I think ultimately these are things that we need to do, but the place of the digital banking, we cannot stop it, because the world is going into a global village, and for us to connect to other banks, including the ones outside the country, it's very pertinent. However, we need to understand that there are some contraindications that come with it, and we need to be careful to manage the contraindications.
You gave a bit of answers to this question when you mentioned about how other countries are, taking up initiatives like educating their customers with videos about fraud and, those activities. But globally, regulators are adopting practices that would help enhance banking sectors. We've seen some of those initiatives. But are there any international best practices that you think that we can apply to help our banking sector and also to enhance stability?
I mean, this is let me tell you how it works in other countries. I mean, thank you for asking this question. I mean, I like to say at this point that I'm an engineer, but I have some insights, and typically it's a non-professional that will give you insights on how things would work in other places and how we can better do it. Now, this is what happens in other countries. We have the banks themselves, whether it be an investment bank or just a normal bank. We do have the banks that do their day-to-day banking operations. Now, we do have the CBN, and we do have what we call in other countries a financial ombudsman. That is a separate independent body that oversees it. So let give you context. If anything goes wrong now, and I wanted to get some sort of review, whether the banks gave me a very expensive overdraft charge, in the UK, for example, and I wanted to find out what's going on, I want to petition it. I will petition it to a set of financial ombudsmen who are separate, and they are just professionals that have been given the mandate to give some oversight on what is going on. So it has nothing to do with the politics of the central bank of the country. They're very separate. And what these professionals do is they're always also on the search for best practices to make sure that, right, you have best practices but adaptable solutions to the country, because the way we would have to tweak our banking sector in Nigeria will be completely different from the way we have to tweak the banking sector in the UK. I'll give you context. In the UK, I can take some money, go to an ATM machine that accepts notes, put it there, it will count it, tell me how much, I'll put my card or account number, click it, and then it will credit my account. We don't have that facility in Nigeria. Perhaps we don't even need that facility in Nigeria because we are predominantly a cash economy. So what people do is mostly take cash. If you bring that technology and say, well, best practices, let's have it, it's not going to be used. Everybody is even looking for cash. We are predominantly a cash-dominated economy. So it's one thing to have a solution, another thing to ensure that your solution is tailored to Nigeria. But to only have these, I think I'll recommend the financial ombudsman, who will be a set of very key professionals. Perhaps they will enter the MPC meeting, the monthly, meeting of the CBN every month, and tell them exactly what they are getting the feelers, because they'll be the ones to connect the CBN. They'll also be the ones to connect the Ministry of Finance, and they'll also be the one to connect the realities of the average Nigerian. And the trio would then constitute what we call the realities of imperatives that is meant to get us a really good designed, whether it's monetary policy or fiscal policy, and that will help us in terms of our economic outcomes, because that's when you have a true picture being brought together by the trio, you can have a better outlook on your economy.
Much, Dr. Wisdom, for your contribution to the topic of stability in the banking sector. We sincerely appreciate your time joining us on the program.
Thank you very much. Deeply appreciate it.
You again.
Always. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Have a nice day ahead.
You too. God bless. Thank you.
Well, this is where we draw the curtains here on Business Points. We have been speaking with Wisdom Enang, Dr. Wisdom Enang, who is a business consultant and energy analyst. Don't forget that you can download the Global TV Nigeria mobile app for Android and iOS devices to keep track of our broadcast and re-watch episodes of our broadcast. You can also follow us on Global TV NG and other handles now showing on your screen. I am Queen Agaba. Thank you for watching and see you again.